Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo. Oh, no.
Amateur Traveler, episode 518. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches and waterfalls, turtles and luau's as we go to the garden island of Kauai in the Hawaiian Islands. Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Without further ado, let's talk about Kauai. I'd like to welcome to the show Peter and Betsy Wuebker from passingthrough.com, who are coming to us from the beautiful island of Kauai and come to talk to us about the Garden Island. Peter and Betsy, welcome to the show.
Aloha.
Well, what else would you say?
Right.
So I say you're passing through Kauai right now, oddly enough, but you lived there for a while.
That's right.
We were here for about 2 years. We started as a visitor, and once we got to Kauai, we just fell in love and went home to Minnesota and sold everything we had, and a year later we were residents of the Garden Isle.
Excellent. And we don't necessarily want to encourage people to leave Minnesota, but why should they come visit Kauai?
Well, Kauai is unique, we think, among the main Hawaiian islands. Each island will have its own personality, and Kauai's really resonated with us for a number of reasons. The first of which is that it's rural and it's garden island green, just an intense, vivid green. There are not too many people that live here by comparison with the other islands, and there are fewer visitors who come to Kauai every year. So that sort of atmosphere, a little more relaxed, a bit less frantic, less touristy, really appealed to us.
And you talk about a few less people who live there. 90% of the population of the Hawaiian Islands lives on the island of Oahu. So once you leave there, really, you're going to something less populous for sure.
That's true. Yes, definitely.
The little town where we lived in, Hanalei, had 600 people between town and the end of the road. So it's a very small town.
And it's always amazed me that more people don't go to Kauai, because I was going to say it's my favorite island. It's one of my favorite islands. I really have a fondness for a number of the different islands, but it really doesn't get necessarily that many, especially up where you were in the north, the rainier part of the island.
True. Yeah.
What would you recommend for an itinerary for somebody coming to Kauai for the first time with maybe a week or less to spend?
Okay. Well, a week or less to spend isn't really enough to start with, but we do what we can, right, with the amount of time that we have. So the first thing that came to our minds when we thought about this is to remind people that Kauai is about being as much as it is about doing. And so you really want to incorporate some unscripted time into your itinerary so that you can just relax, soak up the atmosphere, commune with the island. Part of the reason that you left the mainland US or other places to visit Hawaii is because you want to leave all of that back in the distance and come and rejuvenate, refresh, that type of thing. So with that in mind, then the opportunity during a week to do becomes even less. And so then it's a matter of prioritization.
There's something for everybody on Kauai. If you want to, we're overlooking a golf course here that's a beautiful golf course right on the ocean.
And I certainly try and overlook golf courses whenever possible.
In thinking about the answer to this question, we kind of went back to where did we take our guests when they came to visit us when we were living here? And there are several places that we always took them to, and one of them is the Grand Canyon of the Pacific. It's Waimea Canyon. It's along the southern part of Kauai, and it is a huge canyon as part of the collapsed volcano that is so much of Kauai.
Yeah.
And the colors are just extremely beautiful. It's a wonderful drive, and it can be combined with another place that we always took everybody, and that is to the top of...
It's the Kalalau overlook at the top of Kokee State Park.
It's the rainiest place on earth, but strangely enough, of the many times that we've been there, it's never been raining, so yeah. I can't explain that.
So just come with us.
Let's back up a little bit here. When we talk about the canyon, you say it's pretty and that it's colorful, but we're not talking the same colors as the Grand Canyon, even though it's called the Grand Canyon of the Pacific.
Well, there are similarities to the Grand Canyon because the rock formations are striped, layers of whatever geological era, but there's also a part of the canyon, a bowl-shaped depression, which is actually the center of the collapsed volcano, which initially formed the island of Kauai. And in order to see that, you're going to want to see it by air. You just can't get to it on the ground. And so this is possibly where the justification for the expense of a helicopter tour would come in.
And it's not cheap.
No, it's really not. There are ways to maximize your spend with helicopter tours. You may want to consider taking off from Princeville, which is on the north side of the island where we are, as opposed to down by Lihue, which is where the airport is and where a lot of the helicopter services are clustered. It's probably going to depend on where you choose to stay. But I will say... And
Lihue is in the eastern edge of the island.
Southeast.
Southeast,
I will just plug Princeville for the fact that you can get to the rugged interior in the Nepali coast a little bit faster from that location. And so your view time, I would say, might be more maximized in terms of the hour or hour and a half that you get to go up.
And we're going to get to the Nepali coast in a minute here. Let's finish off the helicopter tour. So when we take the helicopter tour, you're recommending Princeville because then we could do potentially a shorter trip and still see some of the highlights being Waimea Canyon, Waipo'o Falls,
Yes.
I think, which are in the canyon.
They are. And Mount Waialeale, which is, I love
That's
to say that.
why I wanted you to say that.
You did. Okay. After me, Waialeale. But that's the wettest place on Earth.
Yeah, I've never seen the top of the mountain.
We did a couple of days ago, and it was remarkable because we had rarely seen it as well. And one thing to keep in mind is that the mountain makes its own weather, much like Denali in Alaska does. And so therefore, the North Shore is going to be the wetter side of the island. You know, if you want a drier, sandier experience, then you'll want to go to the south side, Polihale Beach, Poipu, those kinds of areas.
Our preference is for the North Shore. It's cooler up here, and it can get quite hot down on the south side. And when we say it's the rainier part, it's the general weather pattern for each day is we get 10 minutes of rain and then it's sunny. So, yes, it's wet, but it's 10 minutes.
Yeah,
It's a warm rain.
It's liquid sunshine, we like to call it. And the benefit of all of that, of course, is the rainbows for which Kauai and Hawaii are so famous.
Well, and we talk about the drier part of the island, the leeward part of the island. Poipu, for instance, still has most of the hotel rooms, as I recall. So there's fewer places to stay, but certainly some people prefer the wetter and some the drier, and I like both. So I'll stay neutral on that one.
Exactly.
Excellent. Anything else we want to say about the helicopter tour before we finish that? I did it with my wife way back. Before they changed the rules, though, they actually were allowed to fly lower at that time. This is years and years ago, but it was stunning. It was amazing.
I think if time is short, that's definitely a must. If you got a little more time, you may want to run along the shore of Nepali coast, take a boat either out of Hanalei in the north or Port Allen in the south. And again, the time of year is really going to determine which one you go out of, because getting out of the bays and everything can be a bit wrinkly depending on the surf conditions. So winter surf is strong in the north and summer surf is strong in the south. So right about now, if you want to take a boat to Nepali, you'll be considering maybe I should take that boat out of the north just for a less bumpy ride.
Well, and describe to people what the Nepali coast looks like.
If you've seen Jurassic Park, that's really the reality. That movie was filmed here in the interior and along the coastline. And there have been a wealth of other adventure movies filmed along its steep, stark, ridged cliffs that rise majestically out of the ocean, and they're covered in a velvety blue, green, brownish, vivid red clay palette. It's just amazing. What else can I say about it? The rainbows. You could drop your camera on the floor of the boat and it would take a fabulous picture of the Nepali coast. It's just that breathtaking. And so the waterfalls, especially after it's been raining during the wetter season, spectacular. You can take a boat right up under a waterfall. Remember when we did that? That was so much fun.
Yeah.
Was that one of the Zodiac tours?
There's Zodiac tours. We were on a catamaran. Depending again on the time of year, and your boat captain will be the expert in this regard, you can have a very personalized encounter with the Nepali coast. You may want to snorkel off the boat. There are trips that do that. Pete mentioned the whale watching earlier during November through March. It's a must-do. It's why you came to Kauai, is just to interact with that landscape.
Well, and if you're more adventurous, there is a trail that goes along the Nepali coast. And I've hiked the first, half mile of it maybe, and it is tough.
It is tough.
It is a tough trail that is going to turn an ankle. You probably don't want to do it alone, and you want to have enough water and enough time because it's a rugged trail. But for those who are adventuresome and in good shape, it is something that it is a spectacular trail. Just even if you can hike up to the point of the first turnaround. I did that from, KA Beach, the last beach on the...
KA, and so you didn't make it all to Hanakapiai.
Nope.
No,
Nope.
no,
Didn't even try.
and neither have we. There's no shame. Uh, a lot of people come to Kauai expecting to be able to hike that trail, and I think they might be overestimating themselves when they do. It can be an extremely treacherous trail, especially during wet weather. Some of the streams that you ford are prone to flash flooding, and regularly people are injured out there, even swept away. And so as you plan your activities, if you're the adventurous or outdoors sort, you're going to want to keep in mind that even though this is paradise on earth, Mother Nature can still pack a nasty punch. And we need to be realistic about what our capabilities are and what the conditions are.
Excellent. Speaking of hiking, you mentioned Waimea Canyon earlier. Have a favorite hike in Waimea?
Well, not particularly. We like hiking up to that Kalalau overlook a lot. Once you're up there, you're 5,000 feet up.
Okay.
And you're up so high you can actually look out over the ocean and see a bit of the curve of the earth. And so we always describe that as one of those thin places where the line between heaven and earth is blurred. That would be our favorite. Again, inside the canyon and into that wilderness area, you need to be the rugged sort.
Right. I would completely agree with that.
Yes.
Excellent.
We've been talking a lot about the South, but there's some pretty cool stuff on the North side as well that are very inexpensive to do. And one of them is to go to the Kilauea Lighthouse, which is also a wildlife sanctuary. It's like $5 to get in. The lighthouse has a famous and long history, and it's a good place to see whales from land, in addition to the large number of tropical birds that you can see.
Yep, that's always a good stop to make. One thing that we did this time around, it was one of those things that we were like, we lived here for how long and we never did this before? Why? But anyway, we had so much fun. We went tubing.
Oh, okay. In the Wailua River?
Well, no, actually, it's in the sugarcane ditch transportation system that was dug out back in the day by hand when it was plantations. Kauai has a long history of agricultural cultivation, and during the sugarcane period, it was divided up into large plantations. Part of that system was getting the cut cane down to the processing, down from the higher areas into the mills where it would be processed, right? And so there's this network of ditches and tunnels that transported the cane by water. And it's the perfect place to go tubing nowadays. And so we just had a blast. If you might be a little faint-hearted about tubing through tunnels, you have a little helmet with a light on and that sort of thing. You rest assured that the week before we did it, a 94-year-old woman did it and had a marvelous time. So it definitely is for all ages. And that's a good way to see the interior of the island as well. There are several vista lookout places where they stop and you can take photos. And that's a really enjoyable and fairly inexpensive day.
And where was that near? Is that on the east side of the island?
It's an outfit called Kauai Backcountry Adventures, and they're located in Lihue. And then they take you on about a 25-minute van trip into the island interior to get started.
Excellent. Before we get to what else would you suggest, what would you skip? Somebody's going to come here and they're going to hear that they should go to, and you're going to say, you're just going to shake your head. And you say, I can't believe that people still go there.
There's a couple of things that locals always laugh about. And the first thing is that more heavily visited South Side area is all people ever see. And we actually had people, when we lived in Honolulu, chatting them up at a watering hole or whatever, visit and say, oh, we've been coming to Kauai 8 or 9 years and we've never even been on the north side.
Wow.
And we're like, what? Come on. We don't bite. And a lot of the guidebooks tend to focus on, I'm not sure how to characterize some of these activities, but, more of the amusement kind of activities. Go get a shaved ice here, or eat a Bubba burger, go to this craft show.
Now, you're not recommending against shaved
No, I'm
ice,
not
right?
recommending against shave
Okay.
ice at all. Seek out the little out of the way places. Maybe spend an afternoon in a small town like Hanapepe or Hanalei or Kilauea or one of those. You can get a shave ice anywhere, and you can kind of soak up some more of that local old Hawaii culture, which is so fascinating.
Okay. If we go to Hanapepe, which I just love saying, or Hanalei, and I don't know where Hanapepe is off the top of my head, what are we going to see there? Old Town?
Yeah, Hanapepe is an old rice mill and agricultural town,
Okay.
plantation era architecture. It's also very close to the place where Captain James Cook landed. Initially, Kauai was the first place that he landed in what became known as the Sandwich Islands and then Hawaii. There's the remains of a Russian fort down there, which is kind of fascinating. This whole area, this archipelago, was at the crossroads of some interesting empire expansion kind of activities with world powers. So there's a Russian presence here, there's a British presence here, and American, obviously. So going down there, you can soak all that up and just wander the main street. It's an artsy kind of a town that's a lot of fun. And Hanalei on the North Shore, where we lived, has that old Hawaii surfer kind of vibe, very laid back. As Pete mentioned, 600 people, full-time residents, situated on probably the most perfect bay ever, semicircular in nature. If you've watched the old South Pacific movie, you'll recognize the scenery. The big mountain range that was called Bali High in that movie is one of those iconic views. We've got to get the selfie in front of that one. And lots of snorkeling up here on the North Shore.
Have a favorite beach for snorkeling?
Two,
Okay.
One is Tunnels Beach, and that's at the end of the road
almost the end, yeah.
on the way to doing the Nepali hike.
When we say the end of the road, we haven't really told people that unlike a lot of the Hawaiian Islands, the road doesn't go all the way around.
True.
In Kauai.
We forgot to even mention that. Yeah.
So it does end.
It does end.
So there are two ends, and the reason is that the Nepali coastline is one of the fastest eroding coastlines in the world, and so they've never put in a road because it would be gone in a short amount of time.
Yeah.
But at the end of the road on the north side, you can go to Tunnels Beach, which is...
KA is at the end of the road, so Tunnels is a little bit before
Yeah,
that.
KA. Yeah, it's almost, yeah.
In any case, these tunnels, I believe, are volcanic in nature, and they're under the water, and they're a great place to dive.
Lava tubes.
And then there's...
And snorkel, yeah.
Yeah, and snorkel.
Our favorite for snorkeling, again, we're a little less rugged, maybe, is Anini Beach.
Oh, sure.
And that's a lovely beach just east of Princeville in the Kalihiwai area. And it's got a nice, flat, open reef that extends with shallow water for quite a ways out. And so even if you're a novice snorkeler, you can still have a quality experience.
Last week, we did have friends visiting Kauai with us, a mother and son, and they are amateur snorkelers, and went to Anini and saw, golly, what was it, 15 turtles and lots of fish and corals, and they had a wonderful time.
I don't know if I've ever seen turtles on Kauai. I've certainly seen them in the Hawaiian Islands. I think our kids learned to snorkel at KA, and that's a great protected beach, so it was great for kids because the water didn't get all that deep before you could literally just walk out to the reef there. And of course, then there's the wild chickens, which they loved. So.
Oh, yeah, we love our chickens here on Kauai. It's part of the rural charm. There are chickens all over the Hawaiian Islands, obviously, but we like to think ours are some of the prettiest.
Let's do something else. If I'm just going to, you talked about downtime. We're going to go to more than one beach on Kauai. We're going to have some downtime. If I just want to lie on the beach, or if I want to do some other beach activities, do you have other favorite beaches that we haven't talked about?
Well, we've talked about Hanalei Bay. There are actually several beaches on Hanalei Bay, and so depending on what you're looking for, you'll go to a certain part of the beach, stand-up paddling, surfing. that sort of thing. We've talked about Anini. Moving further eastward, southeastward towards Kapa'a, there is a little beach in between Anini and Kealia Beach, and that's called Secret Beach.
There's an article on Amateur Traveler about Secret Beach, so it's not all that secret.
Yeah, it's like they should call it Open Secret Beach. It's really lovely, and I'll just defer to your article, which I'm sure goes into the depth that it deserves. I will say, though, that we met a couple of people who actually grew up on that beach, the children of hippies who lived there. So that was an interesting anecdote. You're going to run into all sorts of interesting people on the islands.
For additional beaches, I don't know all of the names of them, but as you continue towards the end of the road from Hanalei, you'll pass a great many beaches that are easily accessible, and sometimes you're the only one that's there. So if you just want a little bit of privacy, there's some beaches where you might be the only person on that beach for several hours. Mm-hmm. It's quite nice.
Excellent. Well, and I think you skipped over one of my favorites for body surfing. I think Anahola Beach was where we found the best body surfing in Kauai.
You know, Anahola is a really interesting area in and of itself. And, you know, there's that little general store there that you can stop off before you get to the beach. And then along the river, there's one of those old Hawaii neighborhoods that's just so special, with the little 2-room houses and the tin roof. Really, really charming.
Other suggestions of ways to pass your time in Kauai?
One of the things that we're interested in and devote a lot of attention to on passing through is the history behind a place. And Kauai has a number of interesting historical and archaeological sites that might be of interest on a quieter day. And the first one of these that comes to mind for us on the North Shore is the Limahuli Botanical Garden. If you're not up, let's say, for Kalala'a Trail, you can get a similarly spectacular view walking the circuit in that botanical garden. And the interesting feature of these gorgeous and extensive grounds and examples of the botany of Kauai is that there's also the remnants of a traditional ahu Pa'a, and I know I mispronounced that, so sorry. Ahupaa, I think. But this is the traditional social structure of the Polynesians, and the land section itself went from ocean to mountain, and then the ecosystem in that particular section of land would support the community in a sustainable way. And so there are terraces that they built with volcanic rock for taro gardens. There's a replica of a longhouse, and there are the foundational remains of some other structures from that time. So it's really an interesting stop to make. Limahuli.
Excellent.
I can't believe we haven't mentioned luau. Oh, I mean, that's probably about the most fun thing that you can do as far as we're concerned, because there's eating and drinking involved. So one thing, if you want the luau experience, you get to decide on Kauai exactly what type of an experience that's going to be. There are several smaller luau's on the island that provide a more traditional Polynesian dance type experience, ranging from Tahitian to islander like New Zealand to the softer and more languid Hawaiian hula. And then there are the full-scale epic entertainment productions at larger restaurants and maybe resort locations. So it really just depends on what you want. What's guaranteed is that the food is going to be delicious and representative of a lot of the Hawaiian traditions. What's your favorite? You tell her your favorite.
Kalua pork is my favorite.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And I can't eat enough of it. On the island, you don't have to go to a luau to get Kalua pork, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And did you have a favorite of the luau experiences? I honestly say we have not ever done a luau, I think. It's always just seemed too touristy to us.
And it can be. And so that's why I would encourage a visitor to seek out some of these smaller ones.
Such as?
On the North Shore, there's one at the Mediterranean Gourmet, of all places. Don't let the name sway you. That was excellent. Mm-hmm. And the interesting thing about that one is there was a sizable Tahitian dance and drumming component, as well as the fire dancing. And this was an entire family who lived across the valley from us. And so on a daily basis, we could hear them practicing their drums, coming through the jungle. And so that was kind of exciting. But there's another new luau in the Kapa'a area. And the name of it escapes me right now. But that is also a small family operation, and it's headed up by the woman who used to perform as a child at Cocoa Palms, where all the Elvis movies were made. And so now she's grandmother age herself, and so she's got dancers ranging from the age of 3 all the way up to adult, and a different representation of the styles of Polynesian dance. So definitely not too touristy. That one is at the Marriott Courtyard in Kapa'a, actually. A more, I think, realistic luau depiction than the over-the-top Disney-fied luau's.
Excellent. We're going to start to wrap this up. Any other highlights that we want to do before we get to my last questions? Or any other warnings you would give before people go to Kauai? I know it's paradise, but you should remember what?
The one thing I think that's kind of coming to the fore more recently around the world, and it certainly occurs here in Kauai as well, and that's the issue of contact with wildlife and wildlife safety. And so maybe we might want to touch on that on a little bit. We mentioned snorkeling and seeing turtles and coral reefs and the like. There have been instances recently of, how do you say this delicately, inappropriate activities with wildlife.
I can think of what I want to say there, but
and it's not what you're thinking, maybe. But there's a legal admonition against getting within 15 feet of a turtle, and yet routinely, as locals, we would see folks approaching the turtles, touching the turtles, and it's just a big no-no. And you can actually be fined about $25,000 if so prosecuted.
I'd like to say in my defense, it was the turtle.
Did you touch a turtle?
I did not touch a turtle, but I did have a turtle swim right over me when I was snorkeling, not on Kauai, but on Maui. And it really wasn't my fault. I did know the rules. I was trying to stay away from the turtle, but the turtle hadn't read the rules.
It's okay if the turtle approaches you or the whale approaches you, but just don't let it be vice versa. The other heartbreaking thing that we observed is the endangered Hawaiian monk seal and people getting too close to it and interfering with its gestation process. They're so rare. People are understandably very interested and want to get that selfie, but just exercise some common sense about the wildlife. And don't pick the coral either.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That's all I'm going to say.
Excellent. Last 4 questions. Here's the tough one. You're standing in the prettiest spot in all Kauai. Where are you standing? What are you looking at?
Oh, it's the Kalalau Lookout.
Okay.
Yeah.
In Kokee. It's that thin place.
Mm-hmm. And so that's we talked about the end of the road. On the southern part of the island, there's 2 ends, one through the Waimea Canyon and one over at, Mala Beach?
Yes.
And so we're at the one end of the road there that is as close as you can drive to and still see the Nepali coast.
True.
Okay.
Yes.
And
Excellent.
then I would say, and running a close second is the lookout over Hanalei Bay.
Okay.
From Kuhio Highway. The road takes a sharp bend down to the Hanalei River Bridge, but just before that, there's a place where you can pull off, and it is just breathtaking.
Excellent.
Especially at sundown.
Yeah, sunset.
Okay.
Sunset, it's really something.
Yeah.
One thing that makes you laugh and say, only in Kauai.
The one-lane bridge etiquette. On the North Shore, there's all these one-lane bridges. I mean, between our house and Hanalei, I think there were 7, maybe. And it's just so hard for people to figure out for some reason that if somebody has started on the bridge, then you stop. You know,
You'd think that would be obvious.
Yeah, you'd think so. There's all these signs on the larger ones that say local courtesy 5 to 7 cars at a time.
Oh,
you know,
okay.
and there's always that 8th, 9th, and 10th Mustang convertible or Jeep Wrangler. And so you know who's driving it, who kind of wants to push the envelope on those numbers. We always called it an exercise in practicing our aloha when that happened.
Excellent. And we should say that if you do rent a car in Kauai, and this actually is a great place to do it because you can't get lost. There's just the one road, and it really does enable you to see more of the island because really not a great public transportation option for doing that. And renting the convertible is a good idea. So,
well, I think so, but just be aware that you'll be known by what you drive.
Sure, of course.
You know, there is an alternative also because rental cars can be quite expensive here because of the limited numbers or whatever. But there are a number of private Hawaiian companies who are appropriately licensed from whom you can rent maybe an older model vehicle and save several $100s a week.
And did you have a couple names of those?
Well, I don't know if we have the names, but you can find them all on Craigslist, I believe.
Yeah, if you look under vacation rentals in Craigslist by island, you'll have half a dozen listings pop up. We know people who've rented from these companies. They're all required to be licensed and properly insured. So that's just a little money-saving tip.
Okay. Finish this thought. You really know you're in Kauai when what?
I was going to say something about chickens, but they got chickens on Maui.
I would say driving across the Kalihiwai Bridge. This is a bridge that is suspended over a really deep gorge, and there are Jurassic-sized acacia trees, you know, the big Serengeti-looking trees, I guess, with the huge canopies. And you feel so small on that bridge. It's just amazing. It's like, we always say that time is elastic on Kauai. You know, a moment will last forever and a week will be gone in a blink of an eye. But on that bridge, it feels like not only are you suspended over that lush green valley, but that time stops for a moment. So that would be my answer.
Peter, do you have a different answer?
No, I kind of like that answer.
There was poetry in that answer. Right?
It is an amazing area, and as we bring our visitors or our friends around the island, we always point that out, and then later on when we're coming back or taking them somewhere else, we're going, are we going by that bridge?
Yeah, are we crossing that bridge?
There is a somewhat famous road in the south that I'm reminded of. I don't know the exact name of it, but it's that tunnel road.
Oh, the Tunnel of Trees. Yep, it's the one you turn off Kohio Highway and you make a left down 520, is it? I think.
Oh, yeah, I know you're talking about. That's the one that goes down to Poipu.
I think it's 520.
Route 520.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
I'm not doing that from memory. I've been looking at a map while we're doing this because one of the things I run to is, this actually goes into the next question, a favorite Hawaiian word, because Hawaiian language only has, 4 vowels? 4 consonants. And so they tend to be long and they tend to sound a lot like each other. But favorite place name in Kauai?
Hanalei. And the reason is because we studied a little bit of the Hawaiian language. And while the translation per se of Hanalei may be something different, I like to think of it as being comprised of 3 Hawaiian words. Ha, which means breath, and then na, which means many, and then lei, of course, we know as the floral necklace. So you put that all together, it's breath of many leis.
And of course, it was also in the Puff the Magic Dragon song. So, what's not to love?
True. I mean, what's not to like?
Last question.
Yeah.
If you had to summarize Kauai in just 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
Paradise. Okay. Home. beautiful.
Excellent. And I should say that this is the second episode we've done on Kauai, but you have had to be listening for a long, long time to have heard the first episode because I believe it was 10 years ago. So if you're interested, you can go back and listen to that. Our guests again have been Peter and Betsy Wuebker. Where can people read more about your travels?
Well, you can find us on our travel blog, passingthrough.thru.com. That's kind of the hub of all of our online activities, but we're also, the usual social media suspects, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
Pinterest.
Yeah, Pinterest.
Excellent. And if you had one post on Kauai that people should read on passingthrough.com, what would it be?
We've got a things to know post.
Okay.
And I'll make sure that you have that URL for the show notes.
And can you give us one thing to know that we haven't talked about? One little teaser here.
Slow down on the road and slow down in your life. You're on island time.
Excellent. I had a boss who I used to work for who said he could only relax when he went to Hawaii.
It's true.
It is a great place to do that. Peter and Betsy, thanks so much for coming on The Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for Kauai.
Thank you very much.
Mahalo.
In news of the community, I heard from Chad this week who said, I'm a truck driver, so my desire to travel may be diminished a bit. I used to be an accountant, got burned out, and now drive and listen to podcasts. I live near Orlando, so there is a bit to do here, but my bucket list would include Disneyland and Italy, which your show has done an excellent job of covering. I used to listen to Rudy Maxa before his show left iTunes. He used to say his show was for those who traveled and for those who traveled in their minds. I enjoy learning about many things, including travel. Your show exposes many parts of the world. Few have gotten rich off their podcast, I know, but I know many do it just for the passion. Anthony Bourdain and Andrew Zimmern are excellent at TV travel. Chris Christensen is one of the best at audio. Kudos to you. Well, thanks so much, Chad. And I don't know if you know, but Rudy Maxa was a guest on the show a long time ago. And I say a long time ago, I just met Rudy Maxa in person at the TBEX, the Travel Blog Exchange conference in Minnesota, where he now lives. And he didn't remember being in the show. In fact, he didn't remember it the next day either. So apparently it didn't make a huge impact on him. I also heard Andrew Zimmern talk as the closing keynote of that conference, who did a very nice job with that. With that, we're going to end this episode of The Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. The transcript of this episode is sponsored by J-Way Travel, experts in Eastern European travel. And as always, thanks so much for listening.